I never thought I would be the guy to write one of these posts. You know the kind, the ones where some poor fool finds out in the worst possible way that his life is a lie. But here I am, and maybe writing this will help me process everything that just happened.
It started as a simple romantic gesture. I'd had a long week at work, and I missed my wife Anna terribly. We'd been married for 7 years, and while things hadn't been perfect, I still loved her deeply. I thought she loved me too. Friday evening rolled around, and I decided to surprise her. I left work a little early, stopped by her favorite flower shop, and picked up a bouquet of sunflowers, her favorite. I even got a bottle of the white wine she loved, thinking we could have a cozy night in. Her office was about 15 minutes away from home, and I knew she had mentioned staying a little late for a project. That worked perfectly. I figured I'd swing by, surprise her, and we'd go home together. But as I pulled up to her office, I saw something that made my stomach drop. There she was, Anna, standing outside the building laughing, and next to her was a man I didn't recognize, but he was standing way too close to her. At first, I tried to rationalize it. Maybe he was a coworker. Maybe they were just talking. But then she reached up and placed her hand on his chest, tilting her head the way she used to do when we were first dating. He leaned in, whispered something in her ear, and she smiled. That smile that was supposed to be mine. I sat there in my car, frozen. The bouquet of flowers lay on the passenger seat, suddenly feeling like the dumbest thing in the world. And then it happened. He kissed her, not a peck on the cheek, not a friendly goodbye, a real, intimate kiss. And she kissed him back. I think I stopped breathing. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. I could hear my heartbeat pounding in my ears, my vision tunneling. Everything in me screamed to get out of the car, to yell, to demand an explanation. But I couldn't move. I just sat there, watching the woman I had loved for nearly a decade betray me in broad daylight. After what felt like an eternity, they pulled away. She laughed again, that light, carefree laugh that used to be mine. Then they walked off together, disappearing around the corner. I don't even remember driving home. The flowers were still on the seat next to me, mocking me. When I got home, I placed them on the kitchen counter and just stared at them. It felt like they belonged to another life, a life that, just an hour ago, had still existed. Now, I wasn't so sure. I didn't confront her that night. I needed time to think, to process. So I waited. When she came home, she acted normal. Kissed me on the cheek, told me she was tired. I wanted to scream, to ask her how she could lie so easily, but I swallowed it down. I barely slept that night. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sound of her breathing next to me. How long had this been going on? Was this the first time? Or had I been blind for months, even years? The next morning, I went through our messages, looking for anything suspicious. Her texts to me were normal, too normal, nothing out of place, nothing unusual. But that in itself felt like a red flag. I checked her social media, nothing. She still posted pictures of us, of our home, of our vacations, but I couldn't shake the feeling that it was all just a facade. I went to the bathroom and looked at myself in the mirror. My eyes were bloodshot, my face pale. I looked like a man who had been punched in the gut and was still trying to catch his breath. I needed answers, so I made a plan. I decided to follow her. That evening, I told her I had a late meeting at work. She kissed me and told me to have a good night. I walked out the door, got in my car, and drove a few blocks away. Then I waited. Sure enough, 20 minutes later, she left the house, dressed a little too nicely for a casual evening. She got into her car and drove off. I followed her. She pulled into a restaurant parking lot, and there he was, the man from the office, waiting for her. I watched as they hugged, as they held hands, as they walked into the restaurant like any other couple in love. That was when I knew. This wasn't a one-time mistake. This wasn't a lapse in judgment. This was something real. And it broke me. I don't know what comes next. but I know one thing for certain. I deserve better than this. If you've read this far, thank you. I just needed to get it all out. Any advice on what to do next would be appreciated.